If you like games like Core Keeper and Terraria, then I think you should be very excited for Tinkerlands. Like Core Keeper, Tinkerlands is a top-down sandbox survival game that is heavily inspired by Terraria. I spent a surprisingly long time playing the Tinkerlands demo, and after playing the demo, I've been very excited for the early access release, which is coming in Q1 2025. So it's really right around the corner. The game follows your typical survival game progression curve of going to a new biome, getting medals, crafting new armor, weapons and tools with those medals, and progressing to the next biome. While doing this, you also fight and farm bosses for loot. The bosses all have unique loot tables like they do in Terraria and Core Keeper, and so a big part of the game is fighting these bosses multiple times as well. In the demo alone, there was already like 6 biomes available. There was a beach, a forest, a snowy area, a desert, a swamp, and a cave that contained like multiple other sub-biomes, like a mushroom biome, a Halloween biome, and like just regular cave biome. So there was already a lot of biomes just in the demo alone. Another important part of the progression in Tinkerlands is to find treasures while exploring. The treasure chests have pretty exciting loot, and like in Terraria as well, you also basically have the equivalent of like hard crystals, so you can find life flowers and mana flowers, and these can permanently increase your stats. On top of that, you also get coins from slaying enemies and other things, and these coins, like in Terraria, can be spent at merchants, where you can purchase basically equipment and other exciting things, and their stock will like rotate. In general, Tinkerlands borrow a lot from Terraria in terms of how the loot works. In terms of combat, I quite liked it. I did think there was a few issues with maybe it spawned a little too many enemies when playing multiplayer versus playing solo, but it wasn't a big deal, but I quite liked it. I think that attacks seemed like well telegraphed. For instance, ranged enemies would like flash before an attack would go off, giving you a little chance to dodge their projectiles. There was also pretty good enemy variety. Like I saw at least 20 different enemies in the demo alone, and a few bosses as well, and I think all of them were pretty fun. I did encounter a few glitches with like slimes jumping over walls, which I wasn't that fond of, but it was a minor thing all in all. In Tinkerlands, you have 3 armor slots, but you have 6 accessory slots, and like in Terraria, you can combine accessories. And the accessories were pretty good, pretty interesting. Like one of them gave you a dash. You can get movement speed, swim speed. You can swim in Tinkerlands, which I liked quite a bit. You can get like thorns damage, retaliation damage to attackers. You can get stat increases such as crit chance or straight like melee or range damage, and you could also get certain effects that made you immune to certain environmental effects such as desert storms. The combination of trinkets worked quite well. It's done like basically exactly the same as in Terraria with the Tinkerer's table. Aside from that, you have your usual weapons. You have staffs plus healing staff, so you can actually like play a healer if you're playing co-op, which I thought was pretty cool. There were obviously a bunch of different melee weapons. There were a bunch of different ranged weapons, bows that used ammo. You have boomerangs and shurikens and like all sorts of weird weapons. Again, very similar to Terraria. I did not see any summons in the demo, but I very much expect that we'll get summons as well. Again, like in Terraria, you have you can like get these affixes on your items, so you can re-roll them at the blacksmith. And yeah, it's very similar to Terraria. You can get both positive and negative stats this way, and you spend money to keep re-rolling. As I keep saying, this game is very similar to Terraria, and even though it is in many ways really just a top-down Terraria clone, it does also bring some new ideas and unique twists to the table. For instance, for the full release of the game, we'll have ship navigation and map-making mechanics, which I don't know much about how it works, but I assume it'll be quite interesting for the purpose of farming rare items or gear, because it looks like you'll be able to choose specific biomes and say, these are the biomes I want on this island that I'm going to. With that being said, housing in Tinkerlands is also very similar to Terraria. You have NPCs like the guide that can tell you tips about the game or what you can craft with specific items, and you build houses for your NPCs and you can move them into houses much in the same way as you do in Terraria. The blacksmith will, for instance, require an anvil and a smelter to be in his house, and other NPCs also have specific requirements like this, but in general it works very similar to Terraria. In terms of crafting, it's very similar to Core Keeper. You have crafting stations that you walk up to and craft, and you already have great quality of life additions such as crafting from storage. You can quick stack to all nearby chests. There are keybinds for both the healing and mana potions. You obviously have the guide, which can be helpful. You can favorite things like in Terraria, doors are auto-opening. You have a delete slot like in Core Keeper. Like there's just a bunch of quality of life, and I was quite impressed by this for a game that's not even in early access yet. What impressed me the most, however, was the game's hotbar, which is separated into 5 slots of 5x2. And these slots are essentially, you can scroll through them like you normally would, or, you know, go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the keyboard to switch between them. And then these slots will correspond left and right click always. So this means you can basically have a melee weapon on left click and a ranged weapon on right click. And it just worked super well. There is also the option in the options to disable this advanced hotbar and have a normal hotbar, I assume, but every time I tried to do this, my game would crash, so I can't confirm whether this is the case. Aside from that, my experience with the demo was like excellent. It was super polished. Performance was 10 out of 10 for me. I experienced no stutters or anything. My girlfriend did crash one time, and obviously I crashed whenever I tried to switch off the advanced hotbar. But other than that, there was no crashes or anything of the sort. The game definitely does need a little bit of balancing and tweaking, I think, but overall, yeah, just extremely polished demo. And if you're interested, I strongly recommend checking it out. Like, you can easily spend 5-10 hours in this demo. The UI and controls were intuitive, like you'd expect. They worked like Core Keeper and Terraria, basically. There was 2 difficulty modes in the demo, and it was basically normal and hard. On normal, you didn't lose anything on death, and on hard, you lost half your money on death. Hard mode would also increase monster difficulty significantly, and but it would also give you more loot. So it was, again, like Terraria and Core Keeper, worthwhile doing if you want the extra challenge, like you were rewarded for upping the difficulty. And again, like both Core Keeper and Terraria, you can change to different worlds, so you can start in a normal world and then later on go into a harder world if you so desire. As I mentioned, early access is supposed to come out before April 2025, so I'm super excited for that. And early access will also have, aside from the ship navigation and map making, it will obviously have new islands, because that kind of comes with the ship navigation. It will also have fishing, it will have cooking, it will have farming, it will have even more new biomes. So yeah, very excited. If you've enjoyed this video, then consider liking and subscribing. I do really appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day. Until next time.